And he election promises that contains the line, today I say the polls are not just open on Tuesday. I say they are open every day, every hour, even here, even now. I'm going to vote right now for the dream of a world where the word politics doesn't stop me in my tracks, where the word honor still has a few good meanings left. I'm going to vote right now for the power of free people to actually be free, no matter who you are, no matter who you love, no matter who has abandoned you, no matter who hates you. I am going to vote for love. I'm going to vote for truthfulness as the norm, not the exception. So, friends, in that spirit, that unfolding spirit, we gather today to light our chalice.
I invite you to join me in lighting our chalice. You can find the affirmation in the order of service. We light this chalice in the search for truth and the spirit of love. We unite in worship and fellowship. As an extension of lighting our chalice, I want to take a moment of silence to light these candles for some of the names of those who have recently been affected by police brutality. We cannot cover all the names of those affected. We light a candle for Freddie Garcia. We light a candle for Rick Alistair Newman. And we light a candle for the life of Fernando Guerrero Esparza. May these lights be a symbol of our commitment to continue the work of racial justice and to proclaim that all Black lives matter. Our opening hymn today is number 163, For the Earth Forever Turning. It is in your teal hymnal. Uh, 163. 106. Sorry about the wrong hymnal. I go by the program here. Now's the time in our service for our joys and sorrows. If you're visiting us for the first time, this is the time when you can introduce yourself. For those who are gathering in person, we invite you to raise your hand and then stand where you're seated. I will give you the microphone to share your joy or sorrow. We invite you to share what is in your heart. Excuse me. For those who are joining us online, we invite you to type into the chat your joys and sorrows. Sally will read them aloud. We invite you to share what is in your heart. I'm going to start off. I think I can speak for most of the congregation and for also the Unitarian Universalist congregations across the United States to say that we are very saddened by the outcome of the election. We heard this morning Paul Simon's song of silence, Sound of Silence, but we cannot be silent. We need to be committed to our core principles, and we need to fight injustice, fear, and hatred, and we need to be alert and ready to protest whenever we can and however we can. And I hope and pray that we can keep our democracy.
Toni Morrison is an amazing gift to American literature. Her vision challenged so many generations of our people to think about who we are and who we are called to be. She also was relentlessly honest and unflinching in seeing the world as it is. She was not a sentimentalist. Our reading today is from a collection called The Source of Self-Regard and comes from an essay, A Foreigner's Home. Toni Morrison writes, "A correction is in order. A new curriculum containing some meaningful visionary thinking about the life of the moral mind and a free and flourishing spirit. To lessen suffering, to celebrate joy, to know the truth and to tell it, to raise the bar of humane expectation. Perhaps we should stand one remove from timeliness and join the artist who encourages reflection, who cultivates imagination like a garden, mindful of the long haul and putting her own life on the line to do the work of a world worthy of life. No more apologies for the bleeding hearts if the opposite is no heart at all. For a future that perhaps only the young will be able fully, purely to imagine. We have no guarantee of victory. Life is original and very hard. A student of mine, probably 20 years old, recently gave me a piece of art," she writes. "Printed and cut and pasted within it were these lines. No one told me it was like this. It's only matter shot through with pure imagination. So rise up, little souls. Join the army toward the meaning of change. Wage the unwinnable." Morrison concludes, "The student seems ready, and so are we. Yes? The work of a world worthy of life. May it be so."
Now is the time in our service when we take an offering. We know it is the gifts of all that help support our ability to thrive and gather. For those attending in person, we will pass the collection plate. Please use the envelope you'll find in the pew, write your name and indicate if your offering is part of a pledge or a donation. For those online, links and instructions will be posted in the chat. You can mail us a check or donate through the PayPal.
Now is the time in our service for a true celebration of joy. Even amidst all the sorrows of the world and the personal sorrows we hold in our hearts, this Sunday, people are making a commitment to this community of love and service. And I invite the leaders of our membership committee forward, Rose Kerr and David Michaels, to welcome and lead this ceremony.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Rose Kerr. I co-chair with Dave on the membership committee. Today is an extremely important day for our congregation. We are welcoming formally 6 new members. Correct. So on behalf of the membership committee of the Unitarian Church of Staten Island, I ask that our 6 proceed up. Chelsea Smith, come on up. Brett Pavlovich, how did I do? Not good, right? I got this one. Leanne Maldonado. Come on up. Alec Courtney. Come on up. And our baby's coming up. Okay, and Bonnie Will Almela. How's that?
Yeah, I think you guys can
Why not?
come here and face the.
You can stand the steps, right?
Or.
Alec is here, okay.
Carries with the baby.
John Adrian, come on up. So we at the Unitarian Church of Staten Island welcome you as new members of our community of love and service this morning. Here they all are. You have come to worship, play, work, and grow among us. Ours is a free church. We have no creeds. You are free to bring your ideas and beliefs to share with others. I invite you to join with us in our religious search for meaning and purpose in life, informed by our individual beliefs and the traditions of Unitarian Universalism. Thank you. Dave?
I thought I'd have the handheld mic. Eric and John, do you want to assist me with giving things out? These are my boys. So we, as a Unitarian Church of Staten Island, all would like to offer you, our new members, flowers that represents the beauty of fellowship. So if you can give each of them, maybe set Leanne's by her feet, or, yeah. So, and actually, Kathy, do you want to help these guys? So, and it used to be a flower, but Rose got flowers, which,
You
fellowship,
bet.
not just one flower, many flowers.
Yeah, that'll look nice.
Yeah, the floor, that's probably better. You don't have to, you have got a lot of stuff. It's gonna be hard to hold it all. Your daughter's clapping. And we offer you food that represents the spiritual sustenance that you bring to us and we bring to you. Oh, one more set of flowers. And now the food. That looks delicious. Did you make that, Kathy? Thank you. Homemade food, homemade vegan food. And thirdly, we offer you these seeds that represent the future and the promise of growth in the search for truth. Not just for you, but for all of us.
By the way, parenthetically, these seeds are seeds from the plant, the flower plant that I received when I became a new member. So I just want you to know, I picked them. There's come back
that's-
year after year.
That's
So,
cool. I like that. Keeps going.
yeah,
And as Daniel pointed out, Reverend Daniel pointed out, we've been here since the 1850s, right? So we keep on going.
same seed.
Yeah. And finally, speaking of Unitarian Universalism, we offer you this copy of Our Chosen Faith, a book about Unitarian Universalism, so you could learn more about it. When my family and I joined, we didn't actually know much about UUism, so we've learned more, and this book is full of information on that. So, yeah, well, actually, there's more to come.
Chock full of stuff here today.
And now I speak to our new members directly, which is first just thank you. Thank you for choosing to join a community in 2024. Thank you for choosing to join this community in 2024. All of you here standing before us have already pledged, or will soon, and signed our membership book. This morning, I invite you to celebrate that commitment in our common worship. In this gathering, we lift up our voices in shared song. We bring ourselves before the sacred and the unknown in silence and in speech. We search together for meaning and truth in life, and we share the joys and sorrows of our lives with one another. Joining the Unitarian Church of Staten Island means being part of this gathered community of people, speaking out on the future of our congregation and world, offering and receiving the gifts of the Spirit, supporting others and being supported in return. If you will join us in this mission and work, I invite you to say, I will. Will the members of the congregation please rise? And we heard the new members' affirmation. And may we respond with the words printed in your order of service insert. We receive with open hands and hearts.
As you join us,
We once again renew our commitment to this religious community. We are proud and happy to have you among us. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome, Darcy. This ceremony has ended, but membership has just begun. Welcome. One of the anchors of our tradition is the principle of unity and variety. We all come to shared spaces, but we're all different and unique. And this morning, we find ourselves in this common space asking, who are we? What are we to do? And in this particular moment in history, what is asked of us? As Unitarian Universalists, we are part of a wisdom-seeking tradition. The folks gathered here today are part of a global tradition that stretches from here on Staten Island to Manila in the Philippines, that connects us with congregations in London and congregations in Westport, near and far. We are part of a history of people who have come and gone forward at different points, committed and anchored to this faith of questions and action, service and love, hope and possibility. And perhaps like you, this week was challenging. And I want to be clear about three things. One, our faith commitments do not change because of political elections. Our values are constant, regardless of the political environment we find ourselves in. Our tradition is crystal clear and has been for centuries. Every person is inherently worthy. All life is connected, and all life has the right to flourish. That doesn't change based on who's a king, president, governor, or mayor. Second, this will be a challenging time. I do not know what tomorrow will bring, let alone 6 months from now. But we are not the first Unitarians to gather in challenging times. And we can learn from those who have come before us mistakes and opportunities to think about what are we uniquely asked to do. And third, in our space, I offer that we think about belonging. Belonging. This week, I had a conversation with a good friend and colleague, Pablo de Jesus, who is a native New Yorker and is also the executive director of Unitarian Universalists for Social Justice, which is our federal advocacy ministry. Pablo, for years, has been active in leading the fight for justice through legislative action. Last year, helped organize a national conference related to the Farm Bill and had Unitarian Universalists from Ohio and Iowa and New York and Florida participate in the struggle to push that bill in directions that were about equity and racial justice and reparations. The bill's still not law. But Pablo said, we are in a different moment than we were a year ago. And I think about, he invited us to think about what happened in 2016. And across the association, in the initial weeks after a major political election, a lot of our congregations filled up for a Sunday or two or three that first month or two. And that happened in many liberal religious traditions, not just Unitarian Universalism. But generally speaking, across the board, something happened in that year of 2017 where that initial impulse to connect faded. And many of our congregations across the liberal religious spectrum did not sustain that growth, that initial attraction. And he said, it's not because our values are not beautiful. And it's not because people don't care, but there need to be pathways of belonging and connection and community. Because the choices that people make to come each week for the long haul, those are grounded in relationships that are peer-to-peer, pew-to-pew, not just anchored in an intellectual commitment to the values, but grounded in multi-year relationships. Dr. Hari Han studies social movements in the United States. She's looked at the environmental justice movement. She's looked at movements for political transformation. She's like, why do some movements succeed and others fail? She wrote in an op-ed in the New York Times, and she said, it's not actually a question of money. It's not a question of the prominence of the members. It's a question of the relationships that people in a social movement have with one another. Sometimes, and this is seminary professor, sometimes the most radical thing people can do is gather on a Wednesday night in America. As I, like you, contemplate what we do not yet know, what will unfold in the coming weeks and months, I reflect on the necessity of relationship, whether it is through social justice committees, spiritual care groups, working to sustain and nurture beautiful buildings like this for the wider public and our common worship. Someone joked, join a committee. That's a small group. That's a small group. And Dr. Hahn suggests that the quality of life within a small group matters. Caring and checking up on people matter. She says, just like a baby needs to develop muscles to stand, democracy is also a muscle. And our wider civic life is dependent on Wednesday night, Tuesday night, Thursday night. There's a documentary called Join or Die that looks at civic life in the United States. And it posits something that our tradition has argued, though we don't always practice it, which is the necessity of the voluntary association. American democracy will not work if it's only about consumers who show up maybe to vote once or twice every 2 or 4 years. Our civic life will only sustain and exist through what Howard Thurman called the little graces of our day-to-day living, those opportunities of recommitment. Marco Bellantini wasn't joking when he said, we have a chance to vote every day. We actually do. How will we spend our time and our days? Will we engage in work that cultivates awe, or will we retract into the understandable but ultimately acidic isolation that so much money in American life wants us to do? Just stay home, watch Netflix, let other people worry about things. Our country is sick with loneliness. Our city is mean. People are kind. But we all see the consequences of disinvestment and isolation. Our congregation can join a constellation of congregations across faith traditions to commit and anchor ourselves in a vision of awakening and connection and hope. The 19th century leaders who connected with this congregation and said it's important for people on Staten Island to gather in a Unitarian context. They weren't the only ones. At one point, there were 2 attempted Unitarian congregations on the island. One was in Tompkinsville. They ultimately merged to join this community that we are in. And I lift that up because I don't consider the second congregation, the Second Unitarian Church of Staten Island, a failure. I consider it a noble experiment, a necessary experiment, and one whose lessons inform the durability of the congregation we are in. Perhaps in this, our approaching 3rd century of existence, there will be at one point another Unitarian church on Staten Island. Perhaps for the next century, there will be this mighty one. But whatever the future holds, I know that the decisions to confirm and make holy Wednesday night meetings, Tuesday night meetings, helping figure out how to clean the building, how to sustain the little graces of our day-to-day choices, that's what makes this faith alive. We have books that go back centuries. We have a vision tied to what Ralph Waldo Emerson described as the oversoul, something that breaks through, that breathes, is a virtue and flows. He writes, it is love. The through line in the changing philosophies over the years is that love. What comes ahead will be hard. You are not alone. And if we lean into belonging, creating space of connection, this rich, noble faith might just save a life. Thank you for joining this congregation this Sunday. Thank you for voting every day to keep making this faith and this sanctuary and this community real and alive. When we had a Halloween trick-or-treat outing last week before the election, I was amazed at the trust people have. Halloween is an amazing holiday. Neighbors just come out with their children, go to strangers and say, "Oh, do you have something to share?" And it happens without asking for money, without deep distrust, which is so anchored in our life. And I was disoriented when a little girl dressed as some type of Harry Potter character took one of the candies and she just said, "God bless you. I nearly fell over and I'm a minister." And there was such genuine earnestness in her outreach. And that happened because people chose to come out. And it's these little graces that make democracy alive. And it's cultivating those little graces that will allow us, whatever comes, to affirm that every person is inherently worthy, not just with our words, but with our living. There will be much more time in the months ahead for political analysis, for reflection, for thinking of the particular ways we are called to respond and defend and protect. There was so much meanness this past election cycle, so much hate. But this island voted for the Equal Rights Amendment in New York State's Constitution, barely passed by 500 or 600 votes, but 500 or 600 people said, "No, everyone is welcome in New York State. You're protected, whatever your identity is. You have the right to make personal choices about your life and your family's life. And that's protected under law because people chose to show up." Thank you for showing up. And thank you for voting every day for love, truth, and unity. May it be so.